The 13th floor. The 13th floor.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 13th floor, where the furniture isn't always the best, but the views are amazing. I'm your moderator, B. Jones, and I'm joined this week by my man, Arthur Faison. What's going on?
Oh, hey.
I was about to say AC Faison, man.
I wasn't ready for the full name this week, but it's cool. Hey, what's going on? It is cold today. For those who listen in Northeast, it was freezing rain, snow, just chaos, and it's going to go all the way until about 3 o'clock this morning, which means that tomorrow is a snow day.
You think so? Because I didn't get that snow day today.
Well, and, I'm taking it snow day, so it will be one.
It pays to be the boss, right? Mike D, what's happening, man? Where you go?
You might want to come off of mute.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, it is amazing the concept of snow day from East Coast to Midwest. So what is a snow day here is get up and go to school.
Ain't that right, Carol?
That is absolutely right.
What's going on, Carol? How you doing up there in the Chi?
I'm good, man. We had a snowstorm last night. It wasn't anything serious. Got more snow coming at the end of the week. But other than that, listen, man, I'm just happy and excited to be here, and happy that we're gonna fill some gaps with some folks today. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that is the goal, man. We got an amazing podcast lined up for you, man. We are going to be dealing with two of my favorite topics, finances and moving our people forward. And to do just that, we brought on Mr. George Clarke, who is the CEO of Banneker Financial Services. Mr. Clarke has an extensive resume, over 40 years experience in risk management, general securities, banking, finance, and all lines of insurance services. You served as a financial industry regulatory authority, and you're licensed in the New York Stock Exchange General Securities Investment Representative, and also served as a past chairman on the DC Board of Real Property Assessments and Appeals. So extensive resume, man. You've been doing a lot in your time as a financial, a financial guru, an expert of sorts, man. So how do you speak to that level of experience? What has that taught you over the years?
Wow. You were talking about me, right?
Oh, yeah.
Actually, experience is an interesting teacher. And, I've had the opportunity of traveling not only around the U.S., but outside of the U.S. I've been to over about maybe 30 countries. And what that does is give you a great perspective on, both economics and social, the social climate. And so it wears on you, because sometimes the more you know, the more frustrating it becomes. Over the years, you get to see a lot of the issues that are facing our community, and in that respect, you become hopeful, but you also realize that there are a lot of challenges that remain, and they have been with us, and they continue to be with us. So the object of that is to find solutions, find ways to work together, find ways to move beyond where we are at this point.
Got you. And speaking to that a little bit, man, we one of the things we talked about a couple podcasts ago was building wealth in our community. We took it from an avenue of the Black business and supporting our Black businesses. And I understand you had an opportunity to listen to that episode, and there was a little bit of a gap that we missed in there, and it was along the lines of financial investments. You and I spoke a little bit about that. So I want you to kind of fill that gap for our listeners this evening. When it comes to building wealth in our community, how do we get to the point where we're making it hit Wall Street, as you explained to me?
Yeah, moving beyond where we are, one of the chief problems is that we are facing mainly a gap in our financial money cycle. You know, there's like a wheel where money circulates through our community and then leaves. I usually use the example of what happens to our dollar. We One good example is buying a home. You know, your mortgage is usually your largest investment that you'll ever make, or single investment you'll ever make. And what happens is you will go to your bank and borrow money for a mortgage. Now, in turn, the bank takes your mortgage and it sells that mortgage to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, big banks like Chase, JP Morgan Chase. And in turn, I'm explaining the wheel. In turn, the JP Morgan Chases and the Fannie Mae's and Freddie Macs, they take that mortgage and they sell it to Wall Street. And then Wall Street turns around and resells those packaged mortgages to insurance companies and pension funds. And then the pension funds, they go to the asset managers and get their money. In turn, the asset managers get their money from who? You. You put your money in your pension funds and insurance companies, and they're the ones that are loaning the money to Wall Street, who in turn is loaning the money to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae are loaning it to your bank. Now, it's specifically your black banks have to go through this process. But the interesting thing is that, as you will note, the money wheel started with you. And so as you go around, and I don't know if you guys might be able to see this. I don't know.
Yep, we can see it.
Yeah, but that wheel, what it does is shows how your money circulates around and it comes right back around to you. But each point on that, excuse me, just arrived. Thank you. So each point on that wheel, somebody's charging percentages.
So just hold on one second before you go on, and I want to make sure that our listeners are catching this. So essentially what you just illustrated for us is that we are paying to borrow our own money. And,
absolutely.
And you're about to take it we pay interest on our own money.
Right. Each one of those intermediaries is charging a fee. And so all they are doing is servicing your money, which comes around that wheel back to you. Now, the gap there is that we do not own insurance companies. We have maybe one or two very small insurance companies like North Carolina Mutual and another insurance company that's still surviving down in Atlanta. But they are pretty much a rounding error when it comes to assets. Mm-hmm. The same thing, we do not own any pension funds. And these are the big gorillas that pretty much have all the money. Pretty much they're the ones that fund much of the both commercial and personal lending. So the money ends up in their coffers and they get their money from you. So basically that's the point. We don't control any of these companies, and nor do we control any of the big money center banks. And our small black banks is where we're losing them because they can't compete with the larger banks. The only way that our smaller black banks are going to survive is that we have to be able to control and get more capital into the money wheel that benefits us.
And basically, so do we accomplish that by doing more business with black banks? Is that basically the simple answer to that?
I think my computer is slowing at one point, but could you repeat what you said?
Yes, absolutely. So I was saying, so is the simple answer to that we need to do more banking with black banks in order to empower them to be better competitors in the wheel?
Actually, that's kind of the myth.
That's the myth.
What we need to do is establish a secondary market, and that means we have to have places where our black banks can sell to organizations or financial corporations that in turn can fund them, and we can fund that financial intermediary. In other words, we need to have insurance companies. We need to have pension funds that we control, or we need to establish our own fund, which means that I was talking to many people about a one fund. A one fund is where people can invest $1 if they have very modest means. If they are a little better off, they can put in $10, but something beginning with a 1. And then the fund in turn would fund our businesses. We have a lot of athletes out here who could give more to the fund or invest in the fund, either 1,000, 10,000, or 100,000. Now the fund would in turn pay interest back to the investors. Not only would it make some of that income from its operations available to fund scholarships for students interested in the securities markets or securities law, because we are vastly represented in that area. So that is the big hole. If we can find a way to fill that hole, then we complete our cycle. Most of the other cultures have done that. The Koreans, the Jewish, and the even the Hispanics are now bringing their capital together and then loaning that to within their communities. So we need to catch up. Right now, we're so far behind the 8 ball. I mean, J.P. Morgan Chase singularly has more money, 10 times the amount of money of all the black banks put together.
Wow.
Walmart has cash flow that is dwarfs all the minority businesses put together. Now, these are just one company. And, although we talk about how we have the economy of the 10th largest nation in the world, we don't capture it. And I know last week you talked about the money stays in our neighborhood for six hours.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So has there ever been a time historically where we did have these pension funds and we did have these insurance companies?
We're looking at Black Wall Street.
Okay.
We had black banks, but the circle was much smaller then.
Mm-hmm.
We had banks there. We had all of the businesses that we used, and part of it was that we didn't have any choice. The majority business wouldn't accept us, so we had to develop our own.
Right.
Now, that's not to say that we can survive on our own. because sometimes you have to use what's in place till you can develop your own.
So is there like a time frame in terms of how long it takes to get that established? Is it 5 years? Is it a generation? What do you foresee if, say, for example, just the five of us decide we're going to do it? Will it be 2020? Is it 2030?
I think it can be done in 5 to 10 years with the commitment of people. And, here again, it's each one teach one, or it's raising funds for awareness. One of our chief problems in our community is we're just not aware of how money works. So we sometimes look past developing these facilities for ourselves.
So I want to build on that, because you sound like, you're well versed on this topic, right? How often does this conversation come up in your circle?
It comes up quite a bit, but there's a lot of reservation and fear that, we have in terms of, well, are we going to upset the money setter banks? Are they going to cut us off? Or, we have to work closely with them. And if we're going the other way, are they going to pull back from us? Well, I say it really doesn't matter, because in the last 5 to 10 years, we've been losing black banks at an alarming rate. We've been losing money in our investment houses at the tune of about 20%. So the problem is that we're not gaining anything, and we're sort of at a standstill. And if you're at a standstill in business, you're moving backwards, because most other things are moving ahead. That's the problem.
So amongst your circle, you see that, and you're losing ground. Who is it that you're looking to help build this? Because the concept seems very tangible. However, it hasn't become, physically, I can't tell. We haven't seen that yet. We don't have any of these insurance companies. We don't have any of these pension funds. How is it that it hasn't come to be within that sector?
Well, one is lack of talent. We need to develop our talent more. We have people who work for pensions. We have people who work for insurance companies, but they need to start using that talent and coming together in sort of a think tank, so that we can capture that talent and then start in the planning stage. Now, the other part of that is capital. Now, we have a lot of high earners, especially our athletes. There are a ton of those. And the sad thing about our athletes is that after 5 years, a good majority of them are broke. There's been a lot written about why athletes go broke. Well, part of that is that they're kind of a captive individual by their managers. And their managers are the ones that, when they sign these guys, they tell them they have to use their investment advisors. They tell them that they're the ones that have to use their realtors. They have to use their bankers, so they're captive. And basically, they live on a portion of their money. I mean, there's no reason in the world some of these athletes who have these $100 million contracts should be broke in 5 years.
Right.
Somewhere there's a problem in management and asset generation and preservation.
Agreed.
Yeah, and we know that's part of that is about educating people about money, right? Yeah. And a lot of these athletes, I think it's safe to say they don't come from money. So they don't know what it is to manage it, invest it, because they didn't see their parents do that in some cases, right? Probably a majority of the
You're absolutely right. Many of the athletes come from one-parent homes. And as they're growing up, everything around them that represents money is usually those images they see on TV.
Right.
And they begin to actually resent those images as a kid because they hate the people and what the people who have that money do to them.
Mm-hmm.
And but when they get into high school, then and they show some talent, then those colleges and those investors start seeing them on the radar. And then they start helping out their relatives because of NCAA rules. They find ways to help the relatives. And then when they get into college, it becomes more aggressive.
Right.
And then by the time they're at the point where they're possibly going to get a pro contract, the managers are telling them, well, look, I have lunch with so-and-so, and his wife knows my wife, and these are the white representatives. And many of the black representatives can't give that same kind of connection. And guys like Everett Glenn, all those guys kind of fell off the radar because they couldn't compete.
Yeah. Shout out to Worth Winning. That's financial advisor Lauren Williams, Olympic athlete. That's exactly what she specializes in, is helping athletes with their finances. So shout out to Lauren, who's been a guest here before. So it amazes me that education and that awareness is not there. We talk so much about promoting Black business, supporting Black business, but you're the first person that I can say I've ever heard talk about the insurance companies and pension funds. And it's almost like mind-blowing to think that we don't have something set up where this is happening. And there has to be a reason, like it's almost like it's being suppressed, that's a part of the puzzle that's missing.
But that's the crux of the puzzle. The pension funds are actually huge insurance companies. There's about $20 trillion out there. And it's just amazing that we look right past the fact that that's where all the control is, because they're the ones that fuel all the ancillary investment businesses. And they're the gorilla in the back room.
Yeah, yeah, right. It's almost like that's the best kept secret. And it's not until you get to a different level of where you see things and know people in the industry that can tell you, hey, these are the pieces, similar to how you have for us of, hey, here's a piece that you all didn't talk about that's a key to unlocking a whole lot of what you're talking about. Because if we were to establish those pension funds and those insurance companies, now you have people that can kind of divert those dollars towards other things like businesses that we want to open, probably more suitable mortgages for people that want to buy homes. So wow. I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely like, wow, how between all of us, we've never even thought of this or heard anybody else say it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm trying to understand the gap in between an individual within the community going to buy a home and actually getting to the point of creating the pension fund to see kind of how do you minimize the context. Because it seems from the wheel that the more people that are in the middle, the more fees that are charged in servicing the money. So is it possible to circumvent Wall Street and all of that and go directly to the pension fund? Or does the process just not allow for that to happen?
It does. We would have to, work with helping to establish our own. There are already out there, but they're small broker dealers. Companies like Shank and Silbert and Sturdivant. We have brokerage companies out there, but they just don't have the clout and the amount of capital to do what is needed to be done. They in turn have to invest our money that we give them into the major markets, because we don't own insurance companies that can handle our money. We don't own pensions. So that's where the money then gets siphoned off and goes out away from our community. So, I mean, think about it. A mortgage. There's like 10 houses on the block, and the average house is what? $400,000 or $500,000, or if it's 300, depending on the location. But each side of that street probably has at least $1 million in mortgages. And those things are probably where we hurt most, because all those mortgages, if you have 4 sides on a block, that's $4 million on one block. And then you go across the street, and then you start looking in our own community, there are billions of dollars in mortgage assets that are sold off, and we don't get a percentage of that back, but it's our money that fuels that cycle.
Exactly.
Because the workers are the ones that put their money in pensions. Most rich people have their their money is in other vehicles, and because they don't work. They run businesses. You have, we buy insurance. They self-insure in many cases.
Yeah, when you have the money and the finances to be able to do that, that's how it rolls, right?
Yeah.
So excellent conversation. I want to change directions a little bit, but before we do, Faison, I want you to go ahead and drop that sponsor for this week.
Yeah, I just want to say that today's episode is brought to you by Compro Tax Cleveland. If you want to get your taxes filed, they do individual, small business, corporations, and nonprofit, free filing and direct deposit. You want to contact them today, it is comprofinancial@gmail.com. That is comprofinancial@gmail.com, or you can reach them at 216-282-4873.
There it is, Compro Financial, baby. Go get them taxes done, get that refund before the government shut down. GC, I got a question for you. You have a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience. So my first question is, how long have you been CEO of Banneker Corp or Banneker Financial Services?
Well, we started Banneker in 1984.
Okay, so 1984, right? And it's 2019. What does your younger millennial employee, that human capital within your organization, what does that look like?
Well, we don't have a lot of younger millennial people. Part of that was due to the crash of 2007.
Yep, it hit me hard.
Yeah, we had 13 people at one time. And it hit everyone hard. But, that was one of the great destroyers of Black wealth. Because we couldn't control the lending process. We couldn't control the money cycle. So they pushed all these mortgages on us, adjustable rates and high rate mortgages. And then they took a hike on us.
Right. They say
none of them went to jail, but we suffered 50% slashes in our property value and asset value.
And that's if you were able to keep your home.
If you were able to keep your home. You're absolutely right.
So the premise of my question is with all of this knowledge and experience and this great company, who is your succession plan, or how do you work up that young fair-haired youth within the organization to start building that infrastructure? And the reason I asked you is because last week we had a conversation about the infrastructure within our communities and being able to take advantage of opportunities, or providing opportunities for our people to learn, grow, and develop, and to own businesses, or to help build up our community in the manner in which we spoke into tonight. So I want to see how you specifically see yourself in that role at your company or corporation.
Well, I try to recruit people to get licenses to enter the industry. the more people we have in the industry gives us more foundation and capability. We have lost over the years Series 7 people who are able to trade on Wall Street or have the experience in how to structure and develop things like mortgage-backed securities, how to work with tranches. In other words, how this money actually flows through the cycle. So I try to recruit people to come into the insurance industry or come into the mortgage banking industry or come into the and get their licenses so that they can, begin to train and get experience and carry that ball forward. Now, a lot of our communities figure that, well, we don't have enough money to support these people, so they feel they're not going to make money. And it's a knowledge base that has to, also be taught in our communities, that we have to support people in the investment industry. They know just as much as the next guy at Merrill Lynch. They know just as much as the next guy at, JP Morgan. So we have to begin to have confidence in our people. That's going to be a slow route. But if our athletes would just invest or use our financial advisors, that would in turn help them survive in the industry and perpetuate and improve the knowledge we have to help develop these secondary markets that we need so badly.
Is it possible that with I know you mentioned athletes and kind of their support going through their managers a couple of times, is it possible to kind of look at that as an additional kind of a way to redirect wealth by getting more minorities or African-American males, females involved as sports agents to create their own agencies?
Yeah, well, we know, 6 points of separation. Most of us, some of us know guys we grew up with or women we grew up with that are athletes. And we need to start talking to them about these concepts on rethinking and where they're putting their money. Because first of all, most of them use the mainstream advisors. I had a friend who worked for Merrill Lynch, and one of the athletes came in with his manager, and he was the only African American in the firm, and they walked right by his desk and gave the business to this young European guy. So he was barely making enough to survive, and all the training and all the effort he had to go through, that athlete couldn't say to his manager, wait a minute, let me get a minute to talk to this guy here.
Right.
So it happens over and over again. And that's why the advisors that are African or minority people of color, we're moving out of the industry at alarming rates. People are dropping their 7s, they're dropping their 6s, because if you work for Merrill Lynch, they tell you have to bring in X amount of dollars. You have to have X amount of book. If you don't make that book, they get rid of you. And because in our community, we don't have people who can drop 100,000 or 250,000. If you look at the net worth scale, just things like that, where the net worth of a black family might be $10,000, the net worth of the average white family is 250. So, I mean, the gap is just so wide that it's absolutely astounding. But if we don't begin to invest or use our advisors or use our bankers, then we're not going to be able to generate the type of experience and individuals who want to go into those professions, because they say, well, I see guys, he isn't making any money, why, I'll do something else where I can get immediate money.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's part of the problem.
So I want to throw in and ask two questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
One for our listeners. So our listeners some are very educated on this topic, and some are here to learn about these topics. I'm obviously one of both sides. You were mentioning 7s and 6s. So for our users, can you explain what those two numbers are as far as their certifications, I believe?
Yeah. The series, these are FINRA, our Financial Industry Regulation Authority designations. It's like a license to be a lawyer. The 6 allows you to do insurance, annuities, mutual funds. It allows you to do basically, if you put a 63, which is another designation in what they call state law, you can put that with your 6, and you can, sell bonds and other mutual funds that invest in bonding. Now, the 7 allows you to trade stocks.
Okay.
And that requires an additional level of understanding the securities industry. You're able to handle different types of products, the commodities market. So it gives you entree into those markets, whereas at a 6 level, you would not have that entree into those markets. So you're going to see far fewer blacks at the 7 level as you would, you're going to see more at the 6 level.
Got it. And so with that question, and we spoke a lot about athletes and the larger wallet person, how can we get that same message down to the high school kids or the college kids who are going to school who actually can benefit from that, $50, $100, $200 minimum deposit? Because right. I believe the fear or the lack of knowledge is that they need more money to invest and they don't know where to start. So how do they get to that point saying you can start small to work up to that large wallet? Right.
And that's a very good point, because most young people have what we call disposable income. They get money from various part-time jobs. They get money from their parents. And, it's not unusual for a high school kid to blow $100 a month.
Mm-hmm.
But occasionally you see those stories where a young high school young person starts putting that money away, or even starts his own little venture or business. And next thing you know, by the time he goes to college, he has $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 stashed away that he got from just both learning how to invest money and having a return on his money. And the other thing that young people don't get, they don't know that they can buy a life insurance product and have it judgment proof. No one can attach that money. If you put your money in the bank, that money is exposed. They can be sued for it if they get into trouble or whatever. But if you put it in a life insurance policy or some kind of insurance product, you can borrow against that and be your own bank and pay yourself back. But a lot of these techniques are not taught in high school because, A, who goes to public school?
Most of your urban city.
Exactly. And capitalism depends on an underclass of people who use the services of the wealthy. So it's not in their interest to teach them how money works, because that's the beginning of how we start taking control of our own financial destiny.
And that's a great point. So how can we reach out to those 6s, 7s, say, hey, come speak to the students here, come to the community center, come to the POW, come to the YMCA, and let's not focus on the sport today, but we're going to teach you about some financial education that you can start with. How do we get in touch with those people? And are they willing to come out for that $50, $20, $40 deposit in their larger portfolio?
Right. There's not really organized. There's, I think, in the district they have the National Association of Stock Dealers, and that is one place to go. I can probably get the exact name, but many of the securities professionals are members of that.
Okay.
That's one place. Many of the black insurance agents have Series 6s or 7s. Very few have 7s, but many of them have 6s. And they can also talk about the industry. Also, there are a lot of opportunities for young people who are 18 and older and have clean records. That's another area where they keep us out, because as soon as you get a ding on your record, you pretty much are sort of blackballed in the industry. And so you have to keep your record clean. But if you want to work, you can work in the summers and after school. You know, when these college kids need money, they can go out and have an insurance license and work part-time and make some serious money. And they're off, during their breaks during the summer. And these are types of income that bear residual to them. So the more they keep building it, the more it keeps going on and on. So it's an actual excellent opportunity, an industry for them to go into, or even use it as a part-time asset builder.
Nice.
So what type of background does someone need to get into this industry?
You can get into this industry with a high school diploma. But the more you know, in other words, if you go to college and you major in finance or take a lot of accounting courses, that makes you stronger.
Okay.
It gives you a better financial base. But a high school diploma, you can get an insurance license.
Wow.
Interesting.
Man.
I'm sure that's not what most people would think. Most people would probably think you need some type of advanced degree
Mm-hmm.
to even get
Right.
into it.
Right. And then that's another myth. You don't have to have a college degree to get a securities license.
Oh, you just need the training. It sounds
Yeah.
more like a trade than anything. And if you get the right apprenticeship and
Exactly.
you with it, you're able to, ascend through the ranks.
Right on point. Yes.
Exactly. Great stuff, man. Amazing conversation, man. I definitely love all the gems you dropped on the show. If our listeners in the Maryland area or otherwise wanted to get in contact with you or contact you about your services at Banneker Core, how can they go about doing so?
They can contact me at 202. I don't know if you have a way of posting it. 202-277-9154. And you have my email address.
Yeah, email at gclarke
Right.
bannekercore.com. That's
Right.
BANNEKERCLRP.com. And
Right. Now, the way they remember that is like Benjamin Banneker, who's actually, most people don't know, was one of the first people to do the sale leaseback transaction in land. So he was far ahead of his times when it comes to financing and getting deals done.
Wow. Well, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. We got a couple segments that we got to hit before we get up out of here. But make sure you subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, and SoundCloud. You can catch the video on YouTube and Vimeo, and follow us on all of our social media platforms at 13th Floor Please on your Instagram and Facebook. Faison, what you got for us this week, man, in the corner?
So this corner is going to be talking on Valentine's and love. So I got two topics, two different sides of the street we're going to talk about. So the first is, taking a look at your truths. So as you're married, together in a relationship, wherever you are in that possibility, take a second and look at it for what it is. Don't compare yourself to someone else's story, because that book inside of it is totally different. So just step back and enjoy what you have. Make sure what you're doing is right by your partner, by yourself, and you'll have a lasting relationship. But once you compare it to others, all your rocks are to fall out of your bag. So focus on you. But then on the other side, you have to have the courage and the strength to be able to walk away when it's not right. It's okay to be single in order to find the most important person, which is you. Take a time to look at yourself and say, is this right for me? And if it's not, I can walk away. But if it is right for me, enjoy it, love it, and be right for yourself. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Single Awareness Day for all of those out there. Single Awareness Day. Let's get it. Coach K, man, you got to take us home, baby.
Man, I don't know how you want me to follow that.
You always find a way.
That love and self-love to just happen. No, really and truly, I think the biggest takeaway today is the gap. There are many things that people want to do, you wonder about, or you assume that you cannot do. And my advice to you this week is to go out there and get the information or the knowledge. Find the people that have it so that you can span that gap and get to that thing that you think is not for you, that is absolutely meant for you if you're willing to put in the time and find the resources to do it.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. GC, thank you again for joining us here on the 13th floor, man. We definitely appreciate all of that. But that's it, ladies and gentlemen. We're done here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Anytime, man. We hope to have you back.
Our pleasure.
Definitely. Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. We're done here on the 13th floor, where the furniture isn't always the best, but the views are amazing.
Wow.
The 13th floor.
Yeah, this is going to be like
So is there a dollar amount? So like you mentioned, like
The 13th floor.